The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience. Because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining me on this Tuesday evening, and we're trying something new tonight, and it is called Allowing My Cat to Stay in My Studio, and we're going to see how long and how well that works out. Normally, I'm in my studio, and I shut the doors, I actually lock them. I mean, that's how persistent of an animal my cat Linus is, and so I lock the door because he could. I think the way that the French doors are, he could just like butt head them in, and I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to make it sound like he's a super animal, superhuman, or anything like that. But there is something very determined of this animal, and so when I started getting stuff ready tonight, I did my normal pre-show stuff, and I go out into the family room here, and I see that he's still in the room, and I thought, well, if I just sit on the couch, maybe he'll just come out and say hi. Of course not. He is still there, so I'm like, okay, all right. I'm a flexible individual. If we'll see how it goes, and you're probably like, well, Greg, what could possibly go wrong? He's a cat. He's not like, I don't even know the equivalent, but normally when I'm talking and I'm not talking to him, I'm just talking. And this was back in the days too, when I used Zoom or Microsoft Teams or something like that. If I'm just talking and it's not to him, he's going to make sure I know that he is here. He will get up on his hind legs and he'll put his claws into my legs just as kind of while he stretches, which is fantastic. He will meow at me. He will do all sorts of like things. There's always, first of all, there's a lot of stuff in this room. You can't see it because if you're watching the Facebook feed, it's very well, the camera is very well set up so you don't see everything that's in here. But there's a lot of things in here that can make noise. And that's what he likes to do as well. He likes to go over. There's a box with a flap on it. I fully expect he's going to go over there, and for the 100th and billionth time, he's going to be like using his paws to play like some kind of musical instrument with it. And so it's important that you all know, if you're hearing noises tonight during this broadcast, and you might think, ooh, it's a paranormal show, that must be a ghost. No, more than likely it is my cat Linus, and he is just, he's just being, he is what Linus is. He's a pain. I love him to pieces, but let's just call him for what he is, a pain in the ass. And but we wouldn't have it any other way, right? So just real quick check here. Hold on. Yeah, he's still in here. I don't know. Maybe he's dead. I should probably check on him sometime. All right. So last night, we had on Nancy Thames. And Nancy was talking about alien ascension. She was talking about having these, having a lot of communication with aliens. What I thought was very interesting, something that I had thought about a long time now, something that I actually talked to Kathleen Martin about, was the idea of aliens kind of almost having the same, contact with the same person throughout that person's life. And Nancy took it a step further. It wasn't just this life. It was like through Nancy's existence of the different lives that she had led. So I find that very interesting. And I'm very curious what you all thought about that program last night, what you thought about Nancy, because there was a lot of stuff that was new to me, and I love it. And I just thought it was really very interesting. And I wanted to I don't know if I'm building on it, but I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind for some time now. And it actually started a couple years ago when there was the Discovery Channel Shock Docs. And that had it was called, I think, Alien Invasion, the Hudson Valley. And and I apologize. I got a lot. I got this cough back again. So you're going to hear me do that little grumbling thing, the clearing my throat. Trust me, it's as annoying to me as it will be to you. The thing is, very early on, that in the program, they talk about this house in the Hudson Valley, which they say Hudson Valley is the most haunted, the most active as far as UFOs in the air in the United States. Whether or not that's true or not, and Joshua says he grew up in the Hudson Valley. Is that true? So I wanted to talk about a part of it, and it's in the first part of it. They're in this house, and this is an old house, and they think that this house is haunted by spirit. And what ends up happening is that they've realized that in the basement of this house, it's kind of like they think it's a spirit highway, which is an area that spirits are, as it may sound, come and go and do their thing, and they're kind of going from one portal to another, whatever else. But it turns out, at least in this house, that it's very possible that it wasn't spirit, that it was alien. And for those of you who follow me on Facebook, and I always put out art for each episode that's going to be airing, and there's tonight is this very washed out picture, and it's like very yellow, and you see this face peering around the corner, and that was from the documentary from that house that the people who live there got before, and the features, one could say, looked like an alien. And I find that so fascinating, and it kind of made me think, along with everything else that's been going on over the past year for me in terms of my personal journey into, calling through energies and things like that. It's like, how much are we looking at going to places, doing paranormal investigations, and not, paranormal covers ufology, quite frankly. But, for the sake of the program, I do always wrongly put paranormal as spirits and ghosts. But how often do we go and do these investigations, and what we're picking up is not spirit, but possibly alien? And I think that is really fascinating to me. Now, I know there's going to be mediums out there, and they'll be like, "Oh, for goodness sake, Greg, I know who I'm picking up." I'm just throwing it out there as a theory, as a thesis statement, and I think it is something that is very I think it's very interesting to talk about and to kind of decide, are we getting more alien interaction than we ever thought we were getting? And I find that stuff very interesting. And that picture that I had put in that piece of art for the show, I found that to be, really maybe compelling, might be a step too far, but certainly, something that is worth us talking about and looking at and just kind of figuring out there. So, I think that was something that I'd like to talk about tonight. And there's another program, another film, and I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it. Let's see because I want to make sure I get it in the right order. Okay, the first film is called Sir No Face. Has anyone ever heard of the film Sir No Face? And that is that is directed by Chad Kellick, and it's shot down in Australia. It's a very interesting thing where it starts off where they're trying to figure out, trying to find any sort of spirit activity. And by the time you get to the end of the film, the big reveal for the film is that they get a picture of a spirit, and lo and behold, just as we just been talking about, it's actually looks like an alien. So then this gets turned into a second film, and the film is called Two-Face the Gray, and it's a very interesting film, and I recommend people taking a look at it. I think that people should see what what these things are. But I'm going to tell you something. I am actually not a believer in Calic's films at all. If you've seen them and you think that they are legit, then I'm very happy for you. The second film, Two-Face, turns into an episode of the X-Files that people in the government or people who have information that no one else has, they see his first film and they're like, oh, he's going to be the one that's going to be the purveyor of this information. So they give him this information about all sorts of government happenings and kind of the things that connects the dots. There's a sequence in the film. Once again, the film I am talking about is Two-Face the Gray. This came out in 2020. You can get it on Amazon. You might be able to find it on, well, apparently it's streaming on Pluto. That means it's free. I should try to find it. But it's something that is really it's a little bit hard to believe because it is so it comes across so covert. It's like, oh, come on, now it's just a little bit more fantasy. To me, I'm not buying it, but you might watch it and you might be like, no, this is absolutely 100%. So, your mileage may vary, but I find those things, that crossover, I find that to be very interesting because it's something that I personally, and for the longest time, I keep everything in its own silo. I had kept everything in its own silo. I'm looking for spirits today. Okay, if I'm interested in learning more about Bigfoot, that's its own silo. Aliens, that's its own silo. And we've talked about this many times now that is not the case. That is all energy. And we've had a number of people now tell us, and I'm not saying any of you didn't know this already, because I have some of the most intelligent listeners on the planet, and I sincerely mean that. But we've had people like Kathleen Martin, we had Char Savoy, we've had last night Nancy Thames, all these wonderful, very smart people. Denise and Ernie Pack, they're very much in that league as well, as people who they're forward thinking like that. And you wonder, going into a paranormal investigation situation, how does that affect how you do things? Because what are we calling through, and do we not want alien to come through? Do we not want to, if we're going into like an old hotel or something? Is that really? I mean, we have a responsibility to be trying to reach out to the entities that we are set to reach out there. This is my opinion alone. Going into a place, say like the Palmer House in Sauk Center, Minnesota, going into there, you're going in there to reach out to spirit. You're not going in there to reach out to grays. And the reason why I say it that way is because I don't think you know what you're going to get into. Now, Nancy last night, she painted a very beautiful picture of all aliens being of love and light. I just don't know if I'm 100% there yet myself to believe that. And I feel like that, and I know that there's a lot of you on here. I'm looking, and when I say on here, I'm talking about the Facebook feed. I know a lot of you on here will agree with Nancy. There's situations that I've had over the past 2 weeks, actually, that makes me think differently. Now, one of the things that really stuck out to me that Nancy said yesterday or last night was that she had mentioned how, we are programmed to think certain ways. And I would not disagree with that 100% at all. I think she's absolutely right. And that's kind of my internal battle that I'm dealing with. And I'm not saying that, alien invasion coming soon, look out, hide, Orson Welles, 1931 all over again. What I'm trying to say, though, is that there's been situations that I've experienced that I am not 100% sure if what we are all thinking is good means the same thing to certain factors of aliens. And that's once again, my point of view only. I don't know if anyone else agrees with it or given it much thought, or just would rather just err on the side of why can't we just come to the side of the fact that they're all good. And I think those are very valid pieces as well. I just want to talk about some stuff that's happened over the past couple weeks that I found very interesting. And there's a number of you have joined me tonight, and I thank you very much for that. It is good to see you all with me on the Facebook feed. Those listening in the radio, if you want to come over to Facebook, over at GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun Facebook page, we're here. We've got a lot of comments, and I want to get through those. So why don't we go ahead and do this? Let's take our first break. When we come back, I want to go through some of the comments that are in the comments section here. Keep filling them up. I also want to talk to you about a CE5 experiment that I did with a friend 2 weeks ago. This is pretty incredible. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. And welcome back to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you so very much for joining us on this Tuesday evening. It's a Just Greg episode, and I wanted to talk about a subject that I've been finding very interesting, and that is the subject of, are we picking up alien vibes, alien frequency, alien communication, when some of us, not all of us, are thinking possibly we are doing some sort of spirit work. And I just find it very interesting, as to me at least, after all these years of doing strictly work to reach out to spirit, those lines are becoming very blurred. Now, I want to tell about a experience that I've had a couple weeks ago, but before I get to that, we got a lot of great comments here, and I want to get to them because it's so important, since you are all taking the time to write. And Jill says, "Love your topic tonight. Hello." Well, thank you very much. Chuck says, regarding Sir No Face, that's the film that Australian government let get made. And absolutely it is. And I don't know, Chuck, what you think of it, if you've seen it or not. What I find very interesting about films like this, and I think I have to be careful because I could be blamed for doing the same thing. I think people like Jeremy Corbyn, who is out in Las Vegas doing all sorts of paranormal stuff out there, and UFO stuff, and with George Knapp, if anyone's heard of George Knapp, who is he blew open a whole bunch of stuff for Area 52 with Bob Lazar years and years and years ago, back in the late 80s. I think they're weaponizing the idea of what aliens are. And I feel like I have to be careful here, because I don't want to be blamed doing the same thing by saying I'm not 100% sure if we can say without any sort of 100% that, as Nancy said last night, that they're all all have good intentions for us. I just don't know if I can completely buy into that yet. But I don't want to sound like I'm being weaponized the same way that like a George Knapp or or Jeremy Corbyn would. And I do feel like that they weaponize. If you weaponize information so that we have a very more of a hostile take on the situation of Area 51, more of a hostile information about any type of sightings and stuff. Go check out what they write about. Maybe you see it differently, but I find it important that we need to be careful in that realm. And I kind of feel like these films, Sir No Face and Two Face, The Greys, I feel like that we are trotting on the same territory with that. Linda Judd says, and you all may completely disagree with me on that. Linda Judd said, I asked Miriam about an experience I had. I called it a psychic attack, and she said it was not ghosts, but aliens that were visiting me. So that was news to me, and this was after I took the UFO photos. So she took some photos. She had some experiences. And And Linda says, I truly believe that aliens have souls, so that makes it easy to get these feelings confused. And I could see that. Let's see here. Um, Joshua says, absolutely agree, but sometimes aliens, I believe, can exist on Earth and can hide in old places away from humans, haunted homes, abandoned. Possibly, in my opinion, the way I would see it personally is that they're using more of like I use the word portal. I don't know if Nancy liked that word. Yes, last night of coming and going, because I don't know if there's a great need for a whole lot of aliens to stay on Earth if they're just like popping in and popping out. But once again, that's just my opinion on it. Jill says, yes, Greg, agreed to you. Your comment before on feeling of being scanned supernaturally is exactly they too, aliens, grays, others, also feel when scanned remotely viewed and do not like it. So they are watching it. And I was kind of talking about that with my Bigfoot experience out at West Point at Fort Duffield, when we got this energy from a tree, and all of a sudden we all started to feel like this scan happening, and you just cannot confuse it for anything else. Jill also says, my experience from this taught me you must tread very lightly when you either astral project, remote view with aliens. They don't like being spied upon. Yeah, well, I'm certainly not going to do that. I guarantee you that much as well. Let's see here. Joshua doesn't think that they all have good intentions. That's just my thought too. Damien says, if your brain is not programmed to recognize, it does not see it. So, okay. About a couple Saturdays ago, I was with a friend, and we had planned this for a while. Matter of fact, I mentioned it on the show that we're going to be doing a CE5. And for those who may not remember, CE5 is an experiment to actually try to make contact with aliens. And if you think of it this way, Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a CE3. That is seeing the ship. Now, in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Richard Dreyfuss met the aliens. So he left with them. So that's a CE20 if you ask me. I don't know where that fits into stuff, but we went out, and there's a rural part of Wisconsin that we were in, and one of the key things here, of course, is having just the sky be beautiful, and just beautiful in the sense of it's clear. You can just see everything. Even where I'm in St. Michael, it's not quite the same as being out in like a rural area. So we're in rural Wisconsin, and we're at a home. And we are, we start this CE5 experiment the same way that Nancy's talked about it, the same way that Kathleen and other people have talked about it, and that is, including Cheryl Lynn Carter, who we've had on the show a number of times, and she's had some great experiences with CE5. So we're sitting in the front yard, and why we're in the front yard, you might ask, is because where we were, there is nobody across the street. There's enough land between the houses that you are in pitch dark. You are in pitch dark. There is nothing about this that is like there's any kind of light coming through. Across the street there are trees. Long driveway. We were sitting in lawn chairs, and I am starting us off, and what's going on here is that that we start with meditation. We start with, this is our intention, why we're here, what we want to do, and our intention was to have contact with aliens. Quite frankly, contact with aliens. One of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to use Spirit Box as well. Spirit Box, for those who don't realize, an invention by Frank Sumter, was actually created to reach out to aliens. That was the sole purpose. And then he started getting spirit communication. And that's where that kind of changed. Well, Gary Galka, if you remember, I've had Gary on the show last year, and he had the new SB7 Pro. and this thing has like sweeps at 30 megabit per second. So it is just swinging right through. I mean, it is wickedly fast. It's just like it's just absolutely just really fast. And my thought is the faster we can get, maybe the better chance that we can get with the communication. So I do the meditation, and I am at the end of my meditation, and I'm saying it aloud. And so I send my intentions. All of a sudden, there's a big crash. There is a big crash that happens at the side of the house. And we're just like, what is that? And we walk over, and there's a wood pile that's been there for a number of months. And at that moment, it decides to fall apart. And it falls on gravel. And we were just like, certainly, if it fell on gravel, if it was an animal, wouldn't we more than likely have heard something run away? I think we would have heard more than just that. And so that kind of, I'm not going to lie, that unnerved me from the very start, because it was like, what on earth? And let's just pretend it's coincidence. Okay, what an awful time for that to happen. I mean, it's just incredible. So we sit back down, and I do the meditation all over again. Nothing's crashing. The person I'm with, he's had some experiences before. So I have the spirit box running. It's going super fast. I have it going at 30. And I just said, hello, my name is Greg, and I would love to reach out to you, the usual stuff. And my friend's like, do you know who I am? And they say his name through the spirit box. His name is said. So with that, and we're just like looking at each other, because here's the thing. Getting spirit communication is pretty exciting, but we don't just stare at each other as soon as we get that. This has become a little bit different now, and so we end up we're just sitting there, and I start seeing something moving in kind of like the perimeter, and it looks gray. And I am just like, am I seeing something? Because don't forget, it's dark. I mean, I know that we're not making it very easy on ourselves when we're actually putting it so that it's the darkest, where our eyes are really trying to figure it out. And afterwards, because I said to my friend, I'm like, I see not one, but at least 3 people moving out there in the perimeter, and they're not fully formed. Afterwards, he had told me, he's like, I was seeing something move out there, and it wasn't and then I said it to him, and he is so I said it just as he was seeing it, so we were seeing the same thing at the same time, and it became more of like a perimeter of whatever, of these, dare I say, grays. I just felt like they're kind of surrounding us, because it's really interesting, because the way that the sidewalk works is that it's this square, but then after the square, it becomes more of a narrow part for one car, basically, to go the rest of the driveway. So like it just felt like they're around the square. And one thing I saw, because there's a lot of trees in the front yard, I saw light dancing between the trees, and that's important in a little bit here in the story. But we are seeing this, and the spirit box is still going at this point. And I don't remember if I said anything, but suddenly, and don't forget, we're talking about, I might have moved it up to 50 at this point, the sweep on it. 50, maybe even 90. It might be as much as that, but still, we got a full sentence suddenly. And that full sentence was, "I will never tell." And I thought, boy, that's weird. And I thought to myself, that's really weird. And I looked at my friend, and he's like, no way, no way, no way. I'm like, what's wrong? And he is just like, it's funny. He just messaged me, and I'll get to that in a second because it's important. I didn't want to overstress it because I wasn't sure how many I saw, but anyway, he's just like in his mind. He didn't say it out loud. The question he asked in his mind was, "Am I? When am I going to see you again?" And they said, that's when they said, "We will never tell." Joshua says maybe the sweep scared them off, the speed. You don't understand, and this is what my friend sent me to remind me about. And I'm just going to read what he said. They were lined up and watching us, over a dozen. There were a lot of them. They were all around us. I felt at that point that I made the biggest mistake of my life doing the CE5 because I felt like I was bringing other people into something that was dangerous. It did not feel the love and light that Nancy was talking about last night. I'm not trying to be a fearmonger here. I'm not trying to be like she's wrong and I'm right. I'm just telling you our situation. I also am aware that part of it is down to the fact that it's unknown. That's going to be scary to us as well. There's no doubt about that. But we were out there and they were around us and they were grays. And that, and it's just like, that was just something that we knew, and they were all around us. And it was not a great situation, to be perfectly honest. It was very high 10, and it kind of started to end, and we started to kind of like, you need to go now. It's a party's over. You need to leave. And that's when we went back inside. And what I'm going to do is I want to take a break right here. I want you all to stay with me, okay? Please stay with me, because when we come back, one of the things I want to do, I want to tell you what happened inside the house, because what happened inside the house actually is scarier than what happened outside. And I will never forget some of the stuff I saw that night, and you probably won't either. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We are going to have author Paul Blake Smith on. He's going to talk about his book, President Eisenhower's Close Encounters. What this book is that there is a meeting or multiple meetings that took place between President Eisenhower and aliens, where some agreements were made, and with Eisenhower being the military mind that he is, might have had a deal with them that has actually kept us safe for a great number of years. And we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. Remember, he was on, Paul Blake Smith, not President Eisenhower. We're trying to get him. But Paul Blake Smith was on a few months ago talking about the Richard Nixon, Jackie Gleason alien thing. So, yeah, it's going to be a great conversation tomorrow. So please join in for that. Also, we're talking about my CE5 experience with my friend here, and we're just kind of talking about what happened after we were outside. Now, a couple questions I want to get to. I'm not going to get to everybody at the moment because I want to make sure I finish the story. But Greg asked the question, how tall were they? I would say 3.5. That's what it seemed like to me, 3.5, maybe 4. feet. They didn't look tall to me at all. I don't know if my friend has anything that he would say. I think Chuck should get the award, though, tonight for his question. Could there be a protective sect that showed up? I think that's bingo. I think that's exactly what happened. So my friend, who is part of all this, and he's had experiences before, I believe that the aliens that he has had interactions with were more like Pleiadians, okay? And they're the ones that look more like Earthlings. There's a whole other story to all of that. We feel like that's who kind of came in and kept them at bay, all the Greys at bay. Now, that might just seem science fiction to anyone listening, and that's fair. I totally get it. But the thing is, it's like we are out there, and they are perfectly semicircled around us. They could be all around us for all we know. They could have been the ones that knocked over walked over the wood. But the thing was, it's like they didn't move any closer. We both saw this. This is not like, oh, I think I saw something. Yeah, I think maybe you're right. I don't know. No, we both know what we saw, and it was the same. It was the same. It's the same thing. We think that these Pleiadians came, or whatever they are, that my friend has known for his life, and they put a stop to it. So is it more of a matter of me being callous and bringing forth these Greys? Because they don't seem to be like the Greys that Nancy had talked about. These seem to be, to me, and I think my friend would agree, more like maintenance in a sense, where they're just coming to they're like drones, basically. That's drone. That's the word I'm looking for. And I find that all very, very fascinating. So, Chuck, I think you're right on with that, to be perfectly honest. And yes, Chuck, Eisenhower did indeed start Area 51. Funny enough, right? Let's see here. So we go back in the house, and I go into the bathroom, and I notice something very, very interesting. Now, I normally, in my head, I have like this crease. And if you're watching me on Facebook, you can see where I'm putting my hand. That's where the crease is. I don't know, it's been with me my whole life. Who knows what that means? I guess I never really gave it much thought until that night. Because when I went in and looked in the mirror, it was very, very, very red, and it was raw, and it was hurting. Like, it wasn't, it's just not like, it was like, oh my God, it's more or less like, oh, it's sore. It's just sore. It feels raw. And my friend is just like, what happened to you? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what this is. And it took a day or so for it to go back. Joshua had asked earlier in the comments if we lost any time, and no, we didn't. We did not lose any time. So I'm there trying to figure out what's going on, and then at that point, my friend's wife, she's just, and I don't know about my friend. I don't want to speak for him. I was a little rattled. I'm not going to lie. I was a little rattled from the experience and what's going on with me and stuff. And she's just like, what's the white flashing going on outside? Like, what? Yeah, it's flashing white outside. So we were in the front yard. Where we are now favors towards the backyard. So we're at a different spot, basically. And sure enough, like, one of the windows, it's just white flashing. And I like checked the radar, like, is there like a storm or something? Is it lightning? Is it there's nothing that we could discern that could be a part of this. It just very strange. And so it it's like suddenly it's just like it's almost like a nightmare in a sense. We start hearing knocking. Okay, we start hearing some kind of knocking, which is something that I am not. I'm not enjoying that. They were. It was. First of all, I got to ask my friend because he's messaging me. They were wondering about me. Who's wondering about me? Are you talking about the aliens, the Greys? Is that what you're wondering about? Isn't it great that I'm carrying on private conversations during a broadcast? That's how I roll. So we hear this knocking. We're just kind of like, okay, enough, quite frankly. Do you remember those white dancing lights I talked about earlier in the trees out front? So I'm talking to my friend, and we're at like a breakfast nook, and there's like a bar, and there's two chairs, and then the chair between my friend and I is vacant. And I'm talking to him, and I notice this little light, and it's just moving on the chair. Just moving on this chair. This little tiny white light. I'm like, what on earth is this? And I look to my friend to see, is it like maybe his watch is reflecting off of something, like the light is reflecting onto the chair? And so I look to my friend only to see that he's watching it as well. And we are watching this light, and I don't know if he said to me or I said to him, like, what is this? And it's moving, and it starts moving by itself. It goes up the back of the chair, it goes down the chair onto the floor, and it just buggers off. This little white light. And it was just like, that's enough of this. You know, it's like, what on earth is this? So, I mean, and not of Earth, clearly. And so that was something that we were wondering if we were going to get some sort of interaction, and the official answer is yes, we did. That is the official answer. That was it was incredible. It was truly one of those amazing things. And now that a couple weeks have passed, I want to do it again. Quite frankly, I want to do it again. And so my friend is saying, because he's like, they were wondering about you. He says that's what the aliens, the Greys, were. They were wondering about me, wondering what I was about. And you know what? I don't know what I'm about, so I can't really help them. But you know, I don't know if they were like trying to get information from my mind, and that's where that redness comes from. I don't know what it is. But you know, it's truly, and we had a very interesting night the night before at a private resident investigation, and things really were strange. And we got a lot of great, and not so much me, but the people we're with got some great EVPs and stuff. And so like the whole night, the whole weekend, we were very much, we were faced with a lot of strange things. Yeah, it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And I do think that when you put the effort in and you do the due diligence of setting the intentions now, and with the same person that I went, that we did the CE5, we also did a Bigfoot thing over in a part of Minnesota. And we were just like, let's see what we can do using the same idea of using intention. And sure enough, after we started doing something, and I was playing, and this was at like 3 in the morning, so it wasn't probably the nicest thing to do, blaring this recordings of what people believe is Bigfoot growls and stuff. We start hearing tree knocking across the river, across the Mississippi River, and we have this incredible experience. We start hearing some noises and some yells or something further off across the river into the Wisconsin side. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, in the river, something jumps up in the water and then lands in the water. Now, you could be like, well, it's some kind of fish, surely. It probably is. But once again, the coincidence, it didn't happen at all before we did it. It didn't happen after we did it. I've been in that area a number of times. It's never happened. And, you know, it's just those incredible moments. My friend is reaching out to me, and he's just like, let's do a show and we can talk about it more. Would you all be interested in hearing more about this, especially from another perspective? I think that would be amazing. Because this is my perspective. This is my side of it, and there are two sides to it. There's two experiences that had happened, and you know, my friend and I, we have not talked about this since that weekend. We have not communicated about it. We have not really done anything. So okay, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. Let's get that in there and talk about it. Yeah. Yeah, Nicole, it was wild. So yeah, it was pretty incredible. It was pretty incredible, and for someone who I consider myself to be fairly seasoned at it, that this was quite the night for it. Absolutely. Linda says, "Have your friend on the show." Yes, let's hear more about your experience. And the thing is too, Jill says that great experiments, Greg. Just be ready, but love the interactions you received thus far. And I think that's true. I think that we can all learn from each other from our experiences. A number of you are putting into the comments what you've experienced, and even though I haven't read all of them, they are certainly stuff that I'm keeping in mind too, because there's also this thing too. If I'm saying this and some of you go try it, I don't want anyone to get hurt. Just as if you're telling me what you're doing and I go try it, I don't want to get hurt either. We want to make sure that we are a community that takes care of each other when we're doing these experiments, because I don't think that they all go. I don't think they all go perfectly well, to be perfectly honest. And we just got to be careful about that. I'm not going to lie. When we were out front, I thought we were going to be abducted. I really did. They were around us, and I thought that they were coming to get us. And it wasn't fear for the possibility of that happening. It was fear that I allowed us to get to that point, and I have people I care about with me. That was the bit that I felt like I was being irresponsible. That was kind of how I felt in that situation, and because we were face to face with these entities that it seemed in a sense militaristic, in the sense that they were just lined up, evenly spaced around us. And as Chuck had said, is there something that stepped in? And that's how I took your comment, Chuck. Let me know if that wasn't really what you meant. But I think something stepped in to be like, nope. And Nicole asked a very good question. She asked the question of, do you feel the Greys had bad intentions, or just curious about you guys or your abilities, technology? In my personal opinion, which I think would once again differ very much from Nancy's, and I think they're amoral. Does that make sense? Amoral to the point of like, I talked to Shar about this, and Shar always says, and I think it's a great way of talking about it, like if you said to them like, my arm's hurting today, they'd pull it off because they think that that's what you would need to get the help that you're looking for. I don't think they're trying. I think that this is what their intention is. Like they're a race that does work on people. They carry out scientific experiments. I don't know. That's my thought on it anyway. How could we be done already? This moves by so quickly, folks. Thank you so very much. I have to cut it off. We have another show coming up. Stephanie Miller's next. But let's do another one of these. We'll get my friend on tomorrow. Join us as Paul Blake Smith will be on. We'll be talking about President Eisenhower. Everyone, have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.